Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is a complete video on Angular 16 CRUD operation means create, read, update, delete sample example along with sorting the item, searching the item and also implementing the pagination. Okay, complete guide to create Angular project. First, our machine contains Angular CLI. Okay, here is the command for installing the Angular CLI. Okay, npm install -g means globally install at the rate Angular CLI. You already installed Angular CLI, and if you want to update the Angular, please reinstall this command again. Just open the command prompt and paste this command and enter. Okay, so latest CLI gets installed. Okay, now I am going to create a Angular project. Okay, so command for creating Angular project is ng space new and name of your project. I will name it like Angular 16 CRUD. Okay, here it is asking for routing. Say yes by entering Y. And here it is asking us to choose a CSS styles type. Okay, you want CSS, SAS or SCSS or less. I will use SCSS. Okay. So it's going to create an Angular project by installing the all required packages. Okay, project created successfully. Let's open the terminal inside of the project. Okay, and enter space command like code space dot. It will open Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio is the code is the editor we are going to use for our development. Okay, so here is our Angular project. Okay, let's explore the default files inside of it. First go to package.json file. Okay, so here you can see the version of the Angular. Okay, you can see all the Angular related version is 16.0. Okay, so the package.json contains reference to the libraries and dependent libraries and also some commands like how to run the project or build the project or test the project. Okay, so package is like a configuration file. Okay, and here you can see ts config.json. This is related to TypeScript. Okay, and here you can see angular.json. So here also there will be a build and workflow Angular configurations. Okay, and if you go to src main.ts, it is the entry file of our Angular application. Okay, and here you can see index.html. Angular is a single page application, right? So this is the single page we will have in our project index.html. So it will contain a element like app.to. Okay, so under this element all the content gets rendered by the Angular application. Okay, this is the root element. So that is about the index.html, and assets folder will keep static files like images or something like that. Okay, and here is the app folder. So if you observe, you can see files like app component.css, app component.html, and app component.ts, right? So these three combinedly we can call as a one Angular component. Okay. So TS file where we will write our JavaScript or the TypeScript code. Okay. HTML is the HTML contents where we write, and CSS is the CSS file for the component. Okay. These three combinedly makes an Angular component. Okay. And here you can see app module. App module like is like a uh, entry module. Okay, so here we will configure all our components, routing, something like that. Okay, and we will have one more component that is like app routing module. Okay, this is the root app routing module. Okay, and you can see the folder like node modules. Okay, so this folder contains all the dependent libraries that are help to develop our Angular application. Okay, that is the brief overview on the project. Okay, so for this Angular application, You can use any kind of stylings like bootstrap, tailwind, and material. Okay. So in this video, I am going to use the Angular material. Okay, before installing Angular material, let's run our application. Okay, so to run our application, command you can see ng service the command. Okay, this is the npm start. If you enter npm start, open the terminal, and if you run npm run start, it going to run this command ng service there, right? So that will npm start run means I am invoking this command. So it's going to uh, run our application on a localhost port number like 4200. Okay, let's try to access it. Okay, this is the default HTML content that we will get once we run our application. Okay, so go to material.angular.io, which is the official website for Angular material. Click on get started. Okay, and here is the command to install the Angular material. Okay, copy this command. Okay, open one more terminal and run that command. Okay, would you like to proceed to install? Yes. And it is asking the theme. Okay, theme is nothing but color styling of the application. Okay, indigo, pink, deep purple, pink color, gray, and purple green. All these things it will provide in by default 3 custom styles. Okay, so if you want to see how this theme look like, you can directly change here in the official website. Also, these themes is available. Okay, if I click on deep purple like this, you will see. We click on indigo pink like this. Okay, you click on pink and blue gray like this. Okay, so for this demo, what I will do, I am going to choose the third one, pink, blue, gray. Okay, and it is asking for global Angular typography. Click like yes, and animations include. Okay, that's it. Angular is installed into our application. Okay, now what I will do, I want to this kind of Angular in the Angular website. We have a menu bar, right? Same, I want to have it here. Okay, for that, go to components. In the components, go to toolbar. Okay, so here is the toolbar. Okay, so I want this kind of toolbar. So for that, let me copy this mat toolbar. Okay, component HTML. Okay, and what I will do, we have a single component, right? Currently, what is that component? App component. So this is the HTML we are getting defaultly. So let's remove this existing content. Okay. Okay, up to above the route outlet, I will remove and add the mat toolbar here. So if you observe the route outlet, this is the default Angular component. Okay, so inside of this component, the routing content will be rendered. Okay, and we added mat toolbar, right? Now let's rerun the application. Okay, so not rerun. I am using here, we are seeing some errors, right? That is because I am using mat toolbar, but I haven't imported the mat toolbar component. Okay, for that, uh, if you scroll up, you can see the API tab. Here it will provide the import. Okay, copy this import line. Okay, so all these Angular material imports we have to add in our app module. Okay, so add that import here, and inside of the imports array, add that import. Okay, see now those errors are gone. Okay, now let's check the output. Okay, nothing is visible, content is coming, but styling is not applied because I need to stop the application and I need to rerun again because before installing the Angular material, I have ran my application, right? That is the reason. So let me stop the application and rerun again. Okay, let's check. Now see, I'm getting some black color, right? So to get the primary color, okay, here if you go to the sample, to get the primary color, we have to add a color attribute and its value equal to primary. Okay, and copy that and go to our app component.html and add it here. Okay, now let's check. See, now I am able to see the material menu toolbar. Okay, now let's set up the server backend. So for this demo, I am going to use the fake JSON server. Okay, go to JSON server. Okay, backend endpoint. No need to write code for us. We'll set up a fake server for us. Okay, so first thing is you have to install this command globally to install the JSON server in your local system. Okay, so open the terminal and just anywhere open the command prompt and enter this command and install. Okay, after that to run the JSON server, this is the command to start the JSON server. Okay, so copy this command. So for my demo, what I will do, I will set up the JSON server within my Angular application. Go to package.json file. Here I am going to create a command. Okay, I will name it like JSON run. That is my command name, and here I am going to paste that JSON server running actual command. Okay, now I can start the JSON server by entering command like npm space run space JSON hyphen run. Okay, save this. Open terminal, open one more terminal, okay, because Angular and JSON server should be run parallelly. Okay, here npm run and the command I have given JSON hyphen run it. Okay, here if you observe, it's printed some few endpoints. Okay, so if I try to open this, see, post endpoint, some JSON data. If I try to open one more endpoint, see, comments endpoint. See, now I am able to see a fake server side API. Okay, but by default it is giving endpoints like post and comments and profile. But we can override these endpoints. To override these endpoints, go to db.json file. So this is the file just got created on running the JSON server. Okay, so if I scroll and if I check logs, here you can see. Oops, db.json doesn't seems to exist. Creating a db.json. Okay, whenever you run first time this command, if in that folder db.json file is not exist, it will create. Okay, so what does the db.json means? It is like a storage for our JSON server. Okay, if you observe the endpoints like post, comment, and profile, right? All those endpoints got created based on the root properties here. Okay, if you change the root property here, endpoint name also change. Okay, so for this demo, I want to create a JSON data like superheroes. Okay, so I have already prepared some JSON data. Let me add the data into db.json. Okay, this is my JSON file. Simple data, superheroes. Now, if you check, our endpoint will be this one. Let me show you the logs. I think it will create once you save it. See, superheroes endpoint is created. If I navigate, see, I am getting the API response. Okay. So now what we did, we have created Angular 16 application, installed Angular material, and also added the Angular material toolbar component. And we have set up a fake JSON server like superhero. So next we are going to implement the read operation. That means we are going to invoke this API from our Angular application and we are going to bind this data into our UI. So previously we have set up the JSON server, right? And it is returning some sample response. So in this video, we are going to bind this response data into the UI. Okay. So let's go to our Angular project. Okay. For displaying the API response content, okay, I'm going to create one more new component. Okay. So to create new component in Angular, we can use CLI commands. Open the terminal and enter command like ng generate component. Okay. And I want to create a folder under this app folder. Okay. Any component we create, it will go under automatically under app folder. Okay. So I want to create a one folder like super heroes. Inside of it, I want to create a component. Okay. So now here I have to specify the name of my component. So I will name it like all super heroes. Okay. This is the name of the component. For my demo, I don't want any testing files for my component. So I can use flag like hyphen if hyphen tests. Okay. Run the command. Okay, here you can see some logs like created HTML file, TSS file, and TS file. So we know, right, these three files combinedly will make a Angular component. Okay, so if I go to the file structure, inside of the app, we have a new folder like superheroes. Inside of it, we have another folder like superheroes. Under it, we have component files. Okay. So this is our new component. This is the default HTML content and this is our component and empty CSS file. Okay. Now let's configure a route for this component. Okay. So whenever we map a route for this component in app component.html, we have a route outlet, right? So whatever route we define, that component value gets rendered inside of this element. Okay. So let's map the routing. For that, we have app routing module file, right? Go to there. Okay, in the routes array, let's define the routing. Okay, and add a new object and property like path. And I want this all superheroes component to be a home component. So I am simply specify path like empty. That represents my home path. Okay. And here we have to define the component as well. For that path, with which component has to be load. Okay. So here I will give all superheroes component and it is automatically get imported. Okay. So let's check whether we are able to get this HTML content or not on our home page. Okay. See, here I am getting the text like all superheroes works. That is coming from the all superheroes.component.html. So that represents our new component is successfully configured with routing. Okay. So now let me create a response model for this API. Let me create a model inside of the superheroes folder. Okay. So for that, open the terminal again, clear the logs. So command for generating a model is like ng generate, and in general models we will create as interfaces. Okay, so interface, I want to create an interface. So inside of the superheroes model, right, here we have to specify the folder name and name of the model. I simply give same name like superheroes. Okay, the first thing is the folder name, and this is the uh, file name. And for interfaces, ng generate won't create any folder. Okay, new folder. Okay, so let's run the command. And here you can see superheroes.ts file got created. So if you go to the folder structure under the superheroes, now we have superheroes interface. Okay, now this must contain our payload properties, right? So copy them and add them here and change their types. So ID will be the number and remaining all will be the string. Okay, okay, this is our final API response model type. Okay, now let's create a one more file in the superheroes folder. Okay, that is service file. Okay, in Angular, service files are used to implement the logic for invoking the API calls. Okay, so open the terminal. So command is like ng generate. So now I want to create a service, right? I have to define the template type like service. Okay, inside of the superheroes folder, I want to create the service. So specify the folder name superhero. Okay, and now just specify the name of the service. I will give same like name like superheroes. So on generating, it will generate like super-heroes dot service dot ts file. Okay, and skip. I don't want any tests files. Okay, see here. Super-heroes dot service dot ts file is generated. Let's go to our folder structure, and here is our superhero service. So services are always decorated with the injectable directive. That is because if the class is decorated with injectable, it is a service. So service itself means it can be injected wherever we want, any component or any other service. Like that, we can do constructor injection. Okay. So as an initial step, first we have to inject the Angular HTTP client instance into the constructor of our service. Okay. So private HTTP client. So let's get imported from the port from @Angular slash common slash HTTP. Okay. And from here I can import the HTTP client. Okay, since in the service I am using HTTP client, right? So it module must be imported in our app module file. So go to the app module file, okay, and import the HTTP client module, okay, HTTP client module, and that is loading from same Angular slash common slash HTTP. Okay, now let's get back to our service file and let's create a new method like get. Okay, and this get method going to return array of superheroes result set by invoking the HTTP get endpoint. Okay, in Angular while returning, I can use observable. Okay, okay, that comes from RxJS. Okay, observable, and here I have to specify I am going to get collection of students, right? So sorry, superheroes, right? Superhero interface and array type. Okay. Okay, this observable like is a watcher. Okay, waits for the result. Now here I can invoke the API call. Okay. So I am going to return this dot http dot, and we are going to invoke a http get endpoint, right? So we will have a method like a get. Okay. And to this method, I can define the return type like superheroes array. Okay. And to this method, we have to pass our endpoint. And if you observe this get method, it is a return type of observable. Okay. And this is my endpoint, right? Copy the endpoint, add it here. So that is the logic for invoking our HTTP get endpoint in the service file. Now this service file I can use in my component, and I can call this API call. So let's go to our all superheroes component.ts file. So here I want to use it. Okay. So to use it, let's add the constructor here. And since it is a service, right, injectable service, so in my component I can inject it directly. So private superhero service. Okay. And its type we have to define. Okay, that comes from our superheroes. Now here let me create a method. Okay, like get. Okay. So inside get API call, let me give it like get API. Okay. And here let me invoke the API call. For that I can use my superhero service dot get. So this get is a observable, right? Like a watcher. So we have to subscribe for the result. That means we have to write a method that get executed whenever the API returns the response. So that is like subscribe, and it's going to return the response data. Okay, and that's it. Okay. So for now, let's log the response data to the console log. Okay. So if I check, I need to invoke this API call from the component. So I want to call the API call and I want to bind the response, right? Means whenever the component is loaded, this method must be executed automatically. To execute automatically, we can implement one lifecycle method in the Angular. So let's implement the lifecycle method. So on init. Okay. So import the namespace that comes from the Angular core. And now let's implement the on init method, ng on init method. So this is the lifecycle method gets executed whenever the component is rendered. So inside of it, I am going to call my this dot get API call. Okay. So let's go to our application in the browser and check whether we are able to invoke the API call or not. Okay. So let me inspect element. Okay. And go to the network calls and refresh the page. Okay. And if I go check the network calls, see here is my superheroes API call, and it is get method and it is 200 status okay. And if I go to preview, this is the response I am getting. Okay, the response. So we have successfully implemented the logic for invoking the API call, and now I am getting the data also. So that data needs to be binded to the UI. Okay. So for that, what I will do, instead of storing the console log, let me create a variable here, component variable. Okay. So I will name it like all superheroes. Okay. And its type is superheroes array type. And initially it will be empty. Okay. Empty array. Once the API call is success, then I am going to push the data to my all superheroes variable. Okay. Now I have to use this component variable in the HTML for binding the data. For that, go to our all superheroes or component.html. Okay. And here what I will do means I am going to use the Angular material card to bind the each item from this collection. Okay. For that, go to Angular material website and go to the components and look for cards component. Okay, here is the cards component and go to the example section and let's get this kind of UI representation. So for that, let's copy this mad card HTML content. Okay, so add it here. Okay, and now what I can do, each item should be applied to one card, right? So I can use Angular ng for attribute. Okay, star ng for. Okay, so it going to iterate this entire uh, mat card element. Okay, so based on the collection, so let item of, so what is our component variable that contains the API response collection all superheroes, right? So copy that and add it here. So here what it will do, ng for it will iterate each object from this array and assign that object to the item variable. So using the item variable, I can bind the data here. Okay. So here what I will do, here title will be the name of the superhero. So in Angular for data binding, we have to use string interpolation or we can call double flower brackets approach. Okay. So here it will take a dynamic content, a dynamic expression that can be rendered here. Okay, here I can use item variable dot and what is our response type name, right? So copy that property and add here. Okay, or else you can copy from our superhero model type, right? So here copy from here. Okay, so here I am going to add that one and here let me remove this subtitle. Okay, and I don't want any avatar. Let's remove this. Okay, and here image. So let's bind the image here. Okay, so flower brackets for attributes also we can make dynamic value using the string interpolation. Okay, item dot image URL. Okay, where is that? And here let me remove this content and let's bind the franchise first, franchise value, and I will open flower brackets item dot franchise. Okay, and let me add one more p tag for displaying the gender. Okay, so gender and change the property name as well. Okay, now let's check the output. So here we are getting some error. Mat card component is unknown. That is because whenever we use any component in the Angular material, we have to import its relevant module. Okay, so for that, go to top of the page and go to API section, and here there will be the imports line. So copy this matcard module import, and it should be imported in our app module. Okay, so here let me add it, and this must be registered in our imports array. So save it. Now let's check. See, I am binding data. I am getting some data, right? But the card is displaying too big. So what I will do, let's make it short like this. For that, here there is a CSS. So let's copy this and let's go to our all superheroes component.css file and add it here. Okay, now we can see, right, a little smaller cards. And I don't want this like and share button. Let's remove that HTML content. Here is the mat card actions, right? Remove them. Okay, so save it. Okay, now little better. But this background is applied default gray color, right? So first let's make it white. Okay, default theme color it. Okay, so let me make it white. So here I can add background color white. Okay, now it is visible little better. Okay, now I want to display this content side by side. Okay, and I want to display this content centered. So what I will do, let's wrap this entire card inside of a div first. Okay, so div. Okay, and let me add a new class in my CSS file. Okay, so I will name it like card container. Okay, first let's use uh, flex styling. Okay, let me add display flex. Okay, and let's copy this card and add a class here. Now check. Now it is coming side by side because flex direction by default row. Okay, I want this content to be display if more number of cards instead of expanding or shrinking the cards. What we will do to go to the next slide, I can use uh, something like flex wrap. Okay, flex wrap. So since here we have only two items, right? Because of that, we are not seeing any difference here. But when we have 3 or 4 cards, then it will automatically goes down next card. That is because of flex wrap. Okay. And I want this content to be centered. So I can use justify content center. Okay, now center. And I want some padding top, bottom, and left and right. So for that, what I will do here, I can apply margin 10 pixels. Okay, now I am getting margin side, top, everywhere. It is getting margin. And let me make the cards little bit smaller. So for that, let's define max width like 250 pixels. Okay, now little better, right? So we are successfully implemented the read operation in our Angular 16 application. Next, we are going to implement create operation. Okay, previously we implemented read operation, right? Now we are going to implement the create operation. So for that, just like read operation, how we created one separate component, for create also, let's create a new component. And command is like ng generate component, and I want to create the new component inside of the superheroes folder. So let me specify the folder path. Okay, and I let's give the name of our component. So my component name is like add superheroes. Okay, and I don't want any spec file. If okay, So let's run the command. And here we can see a new component is created. Now, if I check folder structure, inside of the superheroes folder, we have another new component folder that is add superheroes, right? So let's first configure the route for this new component. So for configuring routing, we know we had a file like app routing module. Okay, here let's add new object, okay, for routing. So let's give path. So I will give path like add, okay, and we should map the component for the route, okay. So add superheroes is our component, and here it got imported, okay. Now if I try to access the new path, see here, I am able to access the new path, and this is the sample HTML content in our new component, okay. First, let's create our create API endpoint. So if you go to the JSON server documentation, okay, and here you can see it support all kind of endpoint, means we can do complete CRUD using this JSON server, okay. So let's go to our service file, okay, service file. So here let's add new method like add, okay. So for adding, we should send the payload, means form data. Okay. So here payload of type superheroes object. Okay. Now here I can return this dot HTTP. So creating means post request. So to represent the post request, we will have a post method here. Okay. And to this method, I have to pass the URL. So if you observe the JSON server, almost post endpoint also same. Okay. So let me copy this entire URL. Okay. And give it here. Okay. Remove the unnecessary quotes. And here we have to send the payload as the second parameter to the post method. Okay. That is the required logic in our service file. Okay, now let's close this file and let me open the our new add superheroes component. Okay, so first thing is I need to define a form for creating the new item or the new superhero, right? So here I have to define the form first. Okay, let me add a Angular material card component. So go to Angular material website, go to components and go to cards. Okay, here what I will do means here I just need a mat card tag. So just copy this mat card tag, okay, and add it here. I will add a div inside of it, okay, and I will add a form inside of it, okay. So for creating a form for our superheroes, so what are the fields we have to display? Form fields. We should have field for name, image URL, and franchise, right? Go to our Angular material and go for form fields. Okay. And go to examples. And I want this kind of form field. Okay. Let me copy this mat form field. Okay. And add it here. Okay. I don't want any icon at the end. I don't want any material hint. Okay. Just a label and the input field. Okay. And this label should be name. Okay. Placeholder. I don't want any placeholder. Okay. If I try to check website now, see here I am getting some error. Mat form field is unknown element. That means we know we need to do some imports. Okay, let's first import the mat form field module. So we know our imports must go to app module, right? So here let me add the mat form module, and same thing we have to add it in imports array. Okay, now let's check. Okay, but here text is not as good as this text field, right? That is because I need to import one more component, that is input field, mat input field. For that, go to input field, okay, and go to API and import the mat input. Okay, so copy that and add the import here and copy the module and add it inside of the imports array. Okay, now let's check the output. See, now bit better, right? So now what I will do, I am going to add one more form field in my HTML. Okay, so that is for image URL. Okay, so let me give image URL. Okay, so to get familiar with more different components in Angular material, for franchise, I am going to use the drop down. Okay, so if I go to a drop down, we have to go to select component. Okay, select a tab. So go to examples. Okay, I just want normal this kind of uh, form field. Okay, so let me copy the select form field. Okay, and add it here. Since this is mat selector, right? So we have to import its module. So copy the module as well, and in our app module, add the select module, mat select module, and add it inside of the imports array also. Okay, and here we need to do few changes. Okay, let me remove this disabled attribute for now. Okay, so here mat label will be franchise. Okay, and here I'm going to have two options. One is like Marvel franchise, and another thing is like DC. Okay, so let me remove this disabled attribute and value will be Marvel and DC. So here value will be saved at the server. Here this will be representation of our dropdown. Okay, and let's remove this additional option. Now check the output. Okay, I am getting franchise dropdown, right? Next, I have gender, right? So for gender, I want to use the radio buttons. Okay, go to radio buttons. Okay, and take this example and copy this one, add it here. Okay, and here options will be like male, female. Okay, and their values male and female. Okay, and the next thing we have to import its module also. So copy this and go to our app module and add it here, and also add in the imports array mat radio module. Okay, so let's check. See, now we are getting the data. but everything is coming side by side, right? So I want them to display one after another. Okay. So for that, let me add some stylings here. So go to add superheroes component.css, add a class like form container, okay, and here display flex, okay, and I want each field one after another, means one by one row. So for that we have to use flex direction like column, okay. So let's add this form container to our form element, okay. Class like form. Okay, let's check the output. Okay, now I am getting one by one. Okay, now I want to display this form in the center and not this much big. I want to make it some little bit small form. Okay, so for that what I will do, I will create one more class like card container. Okay, and here display flex. Okay, and justify content center. I want some margin top in pics. Okay, so what I will do, I am going to apply the styles. So for that, I will add one more div top of this part. Okay, okay, and move the entire content inside to it. Okay, and let me add a class and added the card container here. Okay, so it is centered, but it is coming very small, right? So let's give some width here for the card. Okay. So for that, what I will do, let me add one more class like card. Okay. And I will give width like some 800 pixels. Okay. So what I will do, I am going to apply that card class on this mat card. Okay. Card. Now form is little bit reasonable, right? So now the thing is, whenever I am going to add a image URL, I want to display some kind of image preview. Okay, so for that what I will do, so here after the form I will add one more div. Okay, and here I am going to add some image tag. Okay, so img closing tag and src for now empty and some alt like super image. Okay, so if I check now, the image is coming down, right? But I want to come side by side. So for that, what I will do, I am going to use this same card container class on this div. Okay. So inside of this div, I have form element and the preview div. Okay. Now check. See. Now they are coming side by side, right? So now what I will do, I need some spacing between them. So for that, what I will do, it is margin top cells. Now check the top. Now I am getting some space. So now I want the space between image preview and the form field. So for that, what I will do, here in the container itself, I will add it like column gap. Okay, to RAM. Okay, See now, there is some gap between the image preview and the box, right? So here instead of normal image, I want to make this image preview as a material image. So for that, can get that one attribute. For that, go to cards example and go to the examples. Here image is there, right? If I check this image tag, yes, mat card image attribute. Let's add this image attribute here. Let's go to the HTML and here in the image tag, let's add this image tag attribute. Okay. And next thing is these form fields are very small, right? So let's give some width for them. So what I will do, I will directly apply the width, okay, for each form field. So we'll apply style like width 400 pixels. Let's check. So let me add same thing here. I'm guessing missing double quote. Okay. Now form little better, right? Next thing I want to do is I want to add a header for this form. Okay. So for that, let me create one more div on top. Okay. So here I am going to add heading like some h4 tag, create a superhero. Okay. Let's check. Right. Create a superhero. Let's give like h2 to get some boldness. Okay. Create superhero. That is my form. Instead of that, I can use one of the material component like chip effect. This kind of effect we can get. Okay, so for that, take one of the example. Okay, let's take this example, mat chip list. Okay, and add it here. And let me remove the list. I just want one, that too, I want to display my heading. So here I am going to add. Okay, since here I am using one more component, right? So we have to import the module as well, chip module, material chip module. So add it in the app module and mat chip module must also add it in the imports array. Okay, now let's check whether any better form we are getting. Okay, what I will do, I will simply remove these h2 tags. Let me check the output. Okay, it's little better with some good styling. Now let me add a button at the bottom of this form. Okay, so for that, let's go to buttons component. So where are the buttons? Button. Okay, I want this kind of button. Okay, some primary with raised kind of button. So let me copy this button. Okay, so add it next to the mat form field, but here let me give some styling like margin for top and bottom. Okay, sorry, not slot, style, margin 10 pixels top and bottom, 0 on right hand side and left hand side. Okay, and this button label must be add. Okay, I need to import the button module as well. That is why here I am not getting good styling effect. Okay, copy this. So, so copy this and go to app module, add matte button module as well. Okay, sorry for that. Now check the output. Okay, we are getting good button with primary color effect. Okay, so now I want to use React to form approach for reading or binding data to the form. Okay, so the form HTML content implementation is done. I want to use React to form approach to read the form data. Okay, so for that, go to add component, add superheroes component.ts, and here let me add the constructor. Okay, okay, and here I'm going to use private FB form builder. Okay, it is a default a service where we can build the reactive forms. Since I am using form builder, right? So we have to import the reactive form module in our app module. So go to app module. Okay, here import reactive form module. Okay, that comes from the @angular/forms. Okay, now get back to our TS file. Okay, so here I have to prepare a form object like add superhero form. Okay, and using the form builder, I can create a group. Okay, so this group we will have each form field. Okay, so here just like so here what we contain means form field variable names. Okay, so those are equal to our payload name, image URL, franchise. Okay, so I am going to use same names, a name and array. First value in the array will be the default value. That means empty value. Okay, same way image URL default empty value. Okay, and franchise. If you have any doubt, just copy from this. Okay, here comma missing. Okay, and gender. Okay, so I have to map this reactive form to my HTML content. So for that, go to our add superhero component.html. First, I have to create a form group here. Okay, so here on the form element, I need to add a attribute like form group. Okay, it should be assigned with our dynamic value, right? So it should be encapsulated around flower brackets. Okay, so form group add here. Sorry, what is my variable name? Add superhero. Okay, now to each field we have to map with the properties of the form variable. So to map them, I can use an attribute like form control. Okay, so here on form control name. Okay, like this I have to add the attribute, and this attribute values will be our form field values. Okay, so it must be added to input fields. Okay, so for the select it should be added. For radio button group should be added. So let me copy the each individual property and map them here. Okay, name, image URL. Okay, and franchise and the gender. Here it should be gender, and this should be image URL, and this should be franchise. Okay, now I mapped. So on button click, we must raise an event. So for that, on form, I can check for ng submit. So it won't reload the form. It just invokes the method that we are going to register for this ng submit event. Okay. So this event will raise whenever we click on our add button. Okay. So in here, let me create a method like create. Okay. So let me register this method here. So now, for now, what I will do, I will just console log and check whether I am able to read the form data or not. So for that, I can use console.log and I can use the my form variable, okay, dot value, going to give entire form object. Okay, let's check. So something is missing. Form group. It should not be capital F. It should be small f, I think. Form group. Let's check again. Okay, now I am good. Let me create a new superhero like Spider-Man. Okay, franchise will be Marvel, male, and let me get some URL, image URL. Okay, I added image URL. Let me click on the add button. Before clicking that, let me open the inspect element for a developer control and go to console and click on the add. See, I'm getting my entire form data with values. That means I'm successfully able to read the form data using Angular React to Form approach. Okay. So now what I will do, once the URL is added here, I want to preview it here. So for that, what I can do means in the HTML, here src currently empty, right? Here I can add a expression here. So expression also we can do by flower brackets. Okay. So to read the form control, react to form control, what we have to do means this dot add superheroes form dot get, and here we have to specify the name of the control. So here I want to get the image URL, right? Image URL control. Okay, add it here. Dot value. Okay, like this I can read the form data. So copy this and add it here. Not empty. Then I want to display it. Okay. If at all it is empty, then I want to display some data. So for SRC, let me give single quotes because in the expression I am using double quotes, right? So for SRC, let me give single quote. Okay, let's check now. Sorry, I have given this entire expression out of the flower brackets. Cut that and add it here, expression. Okay. Image URL, image. I think I'm good with everything. Yes. Okay, still I'm getting a issue. What is that? Okay, let me give double quotes outside and give single quotes inside. Yeah, now it is gone. Now let me add again. Spider-Man. Now if I add image URL, see, I am getting preview, but it is disturbing my entire view, right? So let me give width and height for the image preview. Okay, file with 300 pixels, height 300 pixels. Okay, let's give image URL again. Okay, that didn't work. Let me give them directly on the image tag. Okay, now little better, right? Preview. So I can give Spider-Man and franchise and mail. So on clicking add, I have to create a new item at the server. So, but initially we are not getting any preview, right? For that, we can add some preview image. In the component itself, I will create a variable like no image, okay? Some dummy image I am giving, okay? So here I am going to use this image whenever the form is empty. Here I am already using empty variable, right? Instead of that, I am going to use that variable, okay? So I will get initially some photo. Okay, I didn't save the TS file, save it. Now check. Now I'm getting some preview, right? So we are fully done with our form data. And final step is we need to integrate our create API call. So for that we have to inject our service, okay? Private superhero service, okay? Superhero service, import the namespace. And here what I will do, this dot superhero service dot add, and I am going to pass my form data directly as a payload, okay, dot subscribe, okay, on successful creation, okay. We have to write some logic. So here what I will do, I am going to typecast it as superheroes object, okay, as superhero type, okay. So on successfully saved, I want to redirect back to my home page. Okay, so for that I need to import one more Angular service like router. Okay, so private router. Okay, that comes from Angular routing. So using this, I can navigate on successful save. So router dot navigate and array, inside of that array our path. Since my a returning path is home path, right? So simply specify slash. Okay, that's it. That is the end of our logic. So let's test it. So I am adding new superhero, franchise Marvel and mail, and let's add image URL. Okay, image URL added. Now click on add. See, I'm getting newly created record. If I check network calls, see this first call is my HTTP post request and it is returning status 201. That means item is created. And second call is our get request. Once we enter into our home component, again invoking our get request. And here is our get data. So we are successfully done implementing the create operation. Next, we are going to implement the update operation. And previously we did create operation, right? By adding the create form. So here, if you observe, I forgot one thing. I forgot to add a button in the home page so that on clicking that button, we have to navigate to the add component, right? So I forgot that. So let me add a button here on the home page. Home page means our all superheroes component, right? So go to all superheroes component.html. Let me add a new div, okay, and class. Okay, and here I want to add a link for navigating to the uh, our add superheroes component. Okay, to add all superheroes component, I am going to use anchor tag. Okay, so to this anchor tag, I can use router link add. Okay, so this is attribute from Angular, and let's label the anchor element like add. Okay, and let's check. See here, we are getting the anchor tag here. If I click, I am smoothly navigating to my add component. But I want this add component as a button. Okay. So for that, you can go to Angular Material website and you can go to the buttons component. From here, we can copy one of the attributes of the button. Okay. Something like this matte raised button, and I want primary color. Copy this one, okay, and add it on the anchor tag directly. Okay, so if we go to website, see now we are getting nice button effect. And let me add some styling. Okay, go to all superheroes component.css. Here let me add a class like add container. Okay, lar box, add box. Okay, and here let's give display flex and some justify content center, okay, and margin 5 pixels top and bottom and 0 pixels left and right. So let's copy this class and add to our div element. Okay, save here as well. Now check. See, now button is nicely centered. Now if I click on add, it's going to the add button. Okay, so this is the logic I forgot in the previous. Okay, create operation. Okay, now let's move to our actual operation, that is update operation. So for update operation, that means we are going to create the edit form. So let's create a new component just like add superheroes component. Okay, so go to terminal. So ng generate component. Okay, and I want to create this new component just like other components in the superheroes folder. Okay, superheroes, and I want to specify the name of the component. So I will name it like edit superheroes. Okay, I don't want any test files. Okay, if tests. Okay, so the final our command is like this. So run it, and here you can see some Angular logs, that is like components, edit component files created. So if I look into the folder structure of my project, I can see the my new component got created, that is edit superheroes. Okay, so now what I will do, let me configure the route for the new component. So go to app routing module. Okay, and here let me add one more route object. Okay, so path, I'm going to give edit and component, our new component, edit component, superheroes component. Okay, that is my route. Okay, if at all, if I try to access like edit, see, I'm getting this text from the edit component HTML. That means my routing configuration is done. So for edit, we have to create two endpoints. Why two endpoint means whenever we go to our edit form, first we have to populate the form which record we want to edit, right? So that means we have to invoke the HTTP get call by ID value. Okay. And another endpoint, that is normal update endpoint, which is a HTTP put endpoint. Okay. First, let's define both in our service file. Okay. So go to service file, superhero service file. First, let me create a endpoint get by ID. Okay. So get by ID. So it's going to have an input parameter like ID value, which API, which record must be fetched. Okay. And if you go to the JSON server documentation, there you can find it also supports particular item by its ID value we can fetch. Okay. Same API we are going to invoke here. Okay. So for that, so it is also going to return observable of single superheroes. Okay. Superheroes. So here we are going to call the HTTP get that going to return superheroes, single superhero, and the just the API call. Now the URL must contains dynamic value, right? ID value should be passed like this URL, right? So for that, what you can do, I can use backticks to generate the dynamic URL. So add backticks and copy the same URL, okay? And it should be end with the ID value, okay? So to add the dynamic value, you can use a dollar and flower brackets. And inside of it, you can specify your variable like ID, okay? So this is the get by ID endpoint, okay? So let's populate this, okay? Later we are going to implement the update operation. Okay, so for that, first let's create a form in our edit superheroes component.html file. Okay, so edit form is almost similar to our add form. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the HTML content or some of the code content from the add superheroes component. So open edit component.html. Okay, and open add superheroes component.html. Okay, now what I will do, I am going to fetch all the data, HTML data, and add in the edit component. So let me do some changes here. Okay, so it is like update heading must be changed. Okay, so here I have to create a form variable. Okay, and I have to create a new update method here. Okay, and anything else I can change here. Here change the button name to update. Okay, so here first let's work on this add superheroes form. Okay, so here that will be like update superheroes form variable. Okay, for that what I will do, I'm going to open edit component.ts file and add component.ts file. Okay, so here is the add superheroes variable, right? So here form group is created from the form builder. That means first I have to inject the form builder in the edit component. So add the constructor here. Okay, and add the form builder. Okay, so now I can copy this object and add it here, but I will name it like update superhero form. Okay, so in edit form we have a form fields like name, image URL, and franchise, right? For update we have to store ID value also, because for updating we have to pass the ID value as well. Okay, so ID will be empty. Okay. So now here let's add a method to invoke the, so here we have to replace the this update so perform hero variable. Okay, and let's create a update method for now, a empty method. Okay, update. Okay, and add this method in our HTML. Okay, okay, good. Now let's create a method to call the our get by ID API call. Okay, so get by ID. Okay, and here we have to inject the service, and in the HTML file here also change the variable name at the preview section. Okay, forgot to do here. Okay, and here no image preview, that is missing, so copy that value as well from the TS file. Okay, so add it in the edit TS file. Okay, and now HTML is good. Now get back to our TS file and let's work on the get by ID method. So it will have input parameter like ID, and it's going to call this dot superhero service, sorry, so superhero. Okay, I haven't injected the service here, so let me inject the superhero service. Superheroes service. Okay, superheroes. Okay, use that service now to invoke the API call. This dot superhero service. Okay, let's properly name it. Dot get by ID. Okay, and pass the ID value and subscribe to the response. So response, it's going to return single uh, superhero record based on the ID value. Okay, so that data must be assigned to this form variable so that that will be read by the form. Okay, to assign the data to the form. Okay, I can use one of the method like set value. So this dot update form dot set. Okay, set value. Okay, this is the reactive form method. So this set value means we have to update entire object. Okay, full update of the form. If you want to update only few fields at the time, you have to use a patch value. Okay, since here I am going to update entire form, I am going to use the set value. Okay, and simply pass the response data as a input to it. It will automatically updates. Okay, so but how I can get this ID value? This ID value generally we are going to maintain in the URL. Okay, so if you go to app routing module.ts, here I simply added it, right? But I want to add dynamic value, which is the ID you want to update. So to represent the dynamic data, I can use colon and ID. So ID is the dynamic value placeholder. Okay, it must be prefixed with the colon. Okay, so now I have to read this value. Okay, so to read this value in the edit component.ts file, we can use Angular router service. Okay. So here we have to inject one more service in the constructor, that is private route activated route. Okay. So now let's implement on init. Okay. So ng on init, that is our lifecycle method, right? So whenever the component renders, we want to populate the form. In that case, ng on it must invoke our get by ID API call. So here only we are going to read our ID value from the route as well. Okay. So here this dot route dot para map. Okay, it's going to read the dynamic values from the URL. Okay. So para. So here we have to read. So let ID equal to number, and I can use para dot get dot. We have to specify the placeholder name. So if you specify the placeholder name here, route play dynamic value placeholder, it's going to get the value, whatever value in that placeholder. So here our placeholder value is ID, right? So copy that ID string and add it here. Okay. Now I got the ID value, so I can invoke the get by ID method. Okay, by passing to. So let's check whether we are able to populate the record or not. Sorry, update form or not. Okay, so let's go like edit slash one. First record I want to edit. See, I am getting the form with updated value, but styling is missing, right? That is because we copied the HTML, but we didn't copy the CSS. So go to edit component.cs file and go to add component.cs file. So copy all the styles and paste it over here and save, and let's check. See, now form is nicely arranged and data is updated. So if you check network call, okay, and go to XHR tab, and if you refresh again, remove mobile view, and now if I refresh, and if I go to network call, here is the API call, get by ID API call. Okay, see the dynamic value dynamically preparing. From the route, we are taking the ID value. Okay, so if I change the ID value, record will be changed. The update form 2 and 3. Okay, like that it is updating. So now here we are directly navigating right in the URL. Instead of like that, what I will do, I am going to add a edit button on every item. Okay, so for that, go to our all components.html file. Okay, so all components.html. So here is the mad content, right? Below it, I want some buttons. So if I go to Angular material cards, examples, there is a like and share button, right? Like that I want. So here, if I go here, there is a one more section like mat card actions. So copy that actions, okay, and add it here. Okay, here I want edit button, right? So let me remove one button. But instead of a button, I want to use a anchor tag. Just like add how we used, I want to use anchor tag. So copy the anchor tag, but I want to display it as a button. So for that I can use matrixed button attribute. Okay. And here value will be dynamic, right? For each card, edit hyphen ID, edit slash ID value, edit slash ID value must be displayed, right? So here dynamic value. To generate the dynamic route, we have to enclose this router link in the square brackets that represent dynamic content. Okay. And here I can specify like a array. First parameter will be the normal string. So normal string means here our edit is there, right? So open single quotes because already externally we are using double quotes, right? That is why internally we have to use single quotes. So slash edit. Normal path will be the first parameter and comma, and we can specify n number of dynamic parameters. Since I have only one dynamic parameter, right? ID. So I am going to pass the ID as the second parameter in the array. That's it. It will dynamically generates the edit button URL. I will show you. Okay, now save and check. See, we got edit button on every page. If I inspect this edit button, see here, edit link, how it is generated, actual href, edit slash one. So if we click on this button, see, we are navigating to the edit component. Okay. So now let's work on this update button. Currently it is nothing, right? Empty method. So first we have to work on update API call. To go to JSON server, update API call is this one, put. Okay. So let's go to first our service file. Let's create a method like update. Okay, and update must contains the payload form payload, okay, of superheroes, okay, and return this dot http put, okay, http put, and first parameter will be the dynamic route because put it should pass the id value, okay. So what I can do, I can use as it is this URL. So, but ID value we are going to get from our payload. So payload.id. And in the second parameter, we have to pass the entire payload object. Okay, this is the API call logic. Now we have to invoke this logic in our edit component update method. Here we have created one dummy update method, right? Here we have to call. So this dot superheroes dot update, okay, it should pass the payload, right? Payload is our update form. So update superheroes form dot value I can pass, and it should be a superhero type. And in the subscribe, once successfully updated, I want to navigate back to the home page. So to navigate back to home page, we have to use our Angular service like router, okay. So here in the subscribe, this dot router dot navigate, and in the array we have to specify our home page path, that is simple slash, okay. So let's check the update. Okay, let's get back here. Okay, let's reload the page again. Let's try to update this item. Let's update this like Spider-Man 2. So if I click on update, so let me clear the network calls first. If I click on update button, see, title is changed. That means data is successfully updated. If you check the network calls, here you can see the put request, which means update method. And if you check the payload, this is the payload we are sending. Okay. So that means we are successfully implement the update operation. Next, we are going to implement the delete operation. So let's implement the delete operation. So for deleting the item, I want to display a confirmation pop-up for deleting. So for that, let me create a new component. Okay, ng generate component inside of the superheroes folder. Okay, I will name my component like delete dialog super. Okay, I don't want any test files. So skip test. Okay, here we can see logs that component is created. Let's check it in our folder structure. Okay, inside of the superheroes folder, now I have delete component. So for me, this is like a dialog component. So there is no route for it. Okay, now go to Angular material website, go to components and go for dialog section. Okay, in the examples, we can see some dialog. Okay, let me use this dialog. So for that, let me copy this HTML content and add it inside of the delete dialog superheroes HTML file. Okay, so if you observe here, title I can change mad dialog title. Okay, so I will change like uh, delete confirmation. Okay, would you like to delete this item? This is the content body of our dialog. Okay, and here there are couple of buttons, okay, like no and okay. In my case, I will change the label like cancel. Okay, another one will be the confirm delete. Okay, so here they will automatically get closed because of the attribute like mat dialog close. Okay, okay, now let's try to invoke this delete component or delete model from our all components.html. Okay, so for that, let's go to our all component.html file, and here we have a edit button, right? So here we are going to add one more button for delete. So here we have used anchor tag, right, for navigation, but here we directly use the uh, button itself because I am going to write a code for click event, button click event. Okay, let me, and one more thing, since I am using material dialog, I forgot to import the component, right? So in the API, copy the mat dialog module, okay, and get back to our project and go to app module, okay, and here let's add that module reference and also add that into imports array. Okay, okay, now get back to our all superheroes component.html. Let's try to add a button here. Here, okay, from the examples, let me take the raised button, okay, and add it here. So this button is like a delete. Okay, for this delete, let me create a click event. Okay, so click event, we have to open brackets, and here we have to write a method. So for that, let's go to all superheroes component.ts. Okay, inside of it, let me create a new method. So let me create a method like delete item. Okay, so here I want to invoke the my mat dialog, right? So for that, I have to inject a mat dialog service. So at the constructor dialog and mat dialog. Okay. So mat dialog comes from the material dialog component. Okay. So constant dialog ref this dot dialog dot open. Okay. To this method, we have to pass our dialog component. So what is our dialog component? Delete superheroes, right? So pass the component class name. And here I am going to give few configurations for my dialog like width. Okay, pixels. Okay, now let's check whether I am able to open the dialog or not. So I have to register it, right, for click event. Let me register. Okay, so now I got delete, but I want this delete button to be red color. So let me change the color attribute label like warning. Okay, let's check. Okay, now if I click on delete, see, I'm getting the delete button. Sorry, pop-up delete model. If I click any button, it will close because there is no functionality we implemented. But this closing happening, that is because our, if you go to our delete component.html, there is a attribute, right? Mat dialog close. So that is why on clicking the button, they are able to closing. Now we have to invoke the delete API call on clicking this confirm delete button, right? So first let's create a service for the delete API call. So go to our all superhero service file, okay? And here let's define our service, delete service. Let's create a new method and it will have a input like item ID or record ID that we have to delete, okay? And this should return this dot http dot delete call, right? We have a delete method and it is almost similar to this URL with ID as the dynamic value, okay? So let me give it here. Okay, that is my API call. So we have to invoke this API call whenever we click on this confirm delete. That means we need to invoke the API call inside of our dialog component. Okay. Now I should not close this confirm delete automatically. So let me remove this mat dialog close. Let's go to my delete dialog component.ts file. Okay. So here we have to get the correct dialog reference so that we can interact with it. So inside of the constructor, okay, dialog ref, so mat dialog ref, okay, that loads from the material library. And here we need to pass our component class type, okay. Inject our service, so private superheroes service, okay, superheroes service. Let me create a method for this confirm delete button, okay. So I will create a method like confirm delete, okay. In this method I have to invoke the API call. So this dot superhero service dot delete, but delete expecting some input parameter, okay. That means from our all superheroes component itself we have to pass the record ID that we want to delete, right? So for that, to pass any data to the dialog component for Angular material, we have an option here, okay. So that is option like data object, okay. So here we can pass any object. So for this all component.ts file, we have to have a input parameter from our HTML. So all superheroes.html, it should pass here item ID, okay. So item dot ID is passing. So let me change here itself. There is the TS file, all superheroes.ts file. Now it contains a ID as a input number. So that ID I can pass as one of the property of the data. Okay. So to read this data, here we have to use the mat dialog token like @inject, okay, of mat dialog data. Okay, this is the token type. Okay, public. I will name the variable like data and type is any. Okay, so it's going to read all the data our all component.ts sending here. Okay, now I can use data.id. Okay, this dot data.id. And here in the subscribe method on successful delete, okay, I want to pass the same ID back to my component. Okay, so for that I can use this dialog ref. Okay, this dot dialog ref close. On closing this dot data dot id I am passing. So what is this line means? It is closing the component. On closing also we can send here data. Okay. Now in our ts file. Okay, so this dialog, this method we have to register the click event with confirm delete, right? So here let me add click event, okay, and invoke the delete confirm delete. Okay. Now go to our all superheroes component. Okay. So now after closing, we have to do something here. That is, in all superheroes variable, we have all data, right? So here we are deleting the data from API by invoking the API call, right? So same record we must delete here also, where in our variable also. So that logic we are going to write here. Sense of our dialog, okay? So here I will check for after closed method and I am going to subscribe for it. Okay. So result. If result exists, why I am checking result means this after close method. Okay. This after closed method will also invoke for cancel button as well. Okay. At that time I don't want to do anything. I have to do some logic when user click the confirm data. So in the confirm data after closing, we are sending the data, right? So I am taking that as a point of contact whether the button is confirm delete button or clicked or cancel button or clicked. If some data is coming, confirm delete button is clicked. Okay, that is why I am checking for the result. So if result exists, nothing but that result is nothing but our ID. So this dot all superheroes equal to this dot all superheroes dot filter. I am going to filter out the deleted item value. Okay, ID not equal to result. Okay, that is my logic. Okay, now let's check and open the dev tools. Go to network call and go to XHR tab. Now if I try to delete this item, see, is deleted from here, and if you see it is invoked the API call with the delete request method. That means our HTTP delete is successfully invoked. If I refresh also, I won't get that item because that was deleted successfully at the server as well. Okay, and next we are going to implement the sorting. Okay, to implement the sorting, I added few additional items, okay, to represent sorting better way. Okay, so if you go to JSON server documentation, uh, the API by default supports the sorting itself. Okay, let's check the document. See here, sorting. So for sorting, we have to send two additional query parameters to our get endpoint, like underscore sort and underscore order. Okay, sort means which column we want to sort. Okay, by which property. Okay, and underscore sort means ascending or descending. By default, here it is showing ascending. Okay, so let's go to our application. First, let's change the API call. So go to superhero service. Okay, and here is our get endpoint, right? Now let's create two input parameters for this method. Okay, like sort column. Okay, column name and sort type. Okay, ascending or descending. Okay, or else I can name it like order. Okay, so order. Now we have to frame our URL dynamically. Okay, so let URL equal to copy this URL. Okay, and add question mark. Okay, and now what I will do, if sort column and order variable contains data, then I want to add them to my URL. Okay, so equal to backticks. Okay, dollar existing URL. Okay, and I want the query parameters. Okay, what are our query parameters? Underscore sort. Okay, underscore sort equal to our sort type, sort column value. Okay, and ampersand. What is another query variable? Or underscore order. Underscore order equal to dollar. Okay, order value. Now we can pass this URL here. Okay, now let's go to our allsuperheroes.component.ts file. Okay, so here we are getting some issue with our service method, right? Because it is expecting some values here, right? So what I will do, I will create same input parameters here as well. Okay, to this method, and I'm going to pass them to the actual service method. Okay, and here initially we can pass them empty. There won't be any sorting, right? We can pass them empty. Okay, now at the top, let's add a drop down for sorting. Okay, different kind of sorting like sorting by ID, sorting by gender, sorting by female franchise. Okay, so for that, go to our all superheroes component.html file. Okay, on the top, okay, let me add the div element here. Go to Angular material website. Okay, go to form field section and go to one of these example and copy this mat form field. Okay, and add here, and let me change the label to sorting. Okay, and let's define our own options here. Okay, so I will define options like initial value, like select with empty. Okay, now I want total 6 type of options. Okay, ID by descending. Okay, ID by ascending. Okay, franchise by descending. Okay, franchise by ascending. Okay, gender by descending and gender by ascending. Okay, and let me give some values like id setting my custom values. Okay, so id by ascending. Okay, and franchise by descending, okay, and franchise by ascending, and sender by descending, sender by ascending. Okay, so these are my values. I am going to assign a reactive form control this drop down so that on every drop down change I can read it. So go to TS file. Okay, here let me create a new variable like sorting control. Okay, so sorting control equal to new form control. Okay, initial value empty. Okay, now I can assign the sorting control variable to my drop down list. So to assign it, we can use a attribute. We should add it on mat-select element. Okay, form control. Okay, and our variable name. Okay, so it is a reactive form control. Now what I will do, I want to listen for the form change. So in the ng on init, what I will do, this dot sorting control dot value changes. I am going to subscribe for the value change. Okay, value. Okay, so here we have to implement the logic. So let me create a one method. Okay, like do sorting. Okay, this method will have our sort value. Okay, so here what I will do, I'm going to create two variables like sort column. Okay, and initially empty. Another one order. Okay, initially empty. Now here we will have a if conditions. Okay, so that if is like our selected value. Okay, selected value equals to our drop down selected value. Okay, else if okay, okay, let's change the values. Franchise by descending, franchise by descending, franchise by ascending, gender by descending, gender by ascending. Okay, and inside of it we are going to assign the values. Okay, so sort column value will be, if it is id, first let me define like this empty value. Okay, so let's copy them. Okay, so here will be descending, ascending, descending, ascending, sorry, not here, descending and ascending. And here we have to assign the property values. Okay, so superhero TS file property values ID, 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 okay, next franchise. So here franchise, here also franchise. Next gender. So here it is gender, here it is gender. Okay. And finally, what I will do, I will call the get API call. This API I'm going to call here. So this dot get API and pass sort column and order by value. And this method should be invoked from here. Okay. So if value exists, okay, then only I want to do sorting. That's it. Let's check. So here it is coming, right? Over here, drop down values. Okay. Let's do some styling for our drop down. Let me remove this. Okay. Int. Okay, that's fine. And let's do some styling for it. So go to all superheroes component.css. Okay. And let me add a new class like filter box. Okay. Display flex. And I want margin from all sides from 15 pixels. Okay. And let me add this to my div element. Okay. Now let's check. Okay. Now far better. Now if you see, we got the data. Now if I inspect element and go to network calls, okay, and then if I change the drop down value, see, descending order, descending by ID. And if I do descending by gender, see, descending by gender. Okay, for descending by ID to represent more effective way, what I will do, I will display the ID value so that you can understand. So to display the ID, what I will do, I am going to use, okay, once go to buttons. Okay, here let me take this round kind of button. Okay. So this mat fab. Let me copy this. Okay. And in the card next to the title and remove the mat icon. Instead of mat icon, just render the item.id and check whether how it looks. Coming. Yeah, now it is coming, right? Okay, now if I do sorting, you can observe. Sort by ascending, sort by descending. Okay. Let me give primary color for this. Can apply color primary. Okay. So that's it. We are done with the sorting. Next, we are going to implement the search. And if you check the network call, see here, sorting values going to the server. Okay. So that's it. We are done with our sorting technique. Okay. Next, we are going to implement the search operation. Okay. Here we are going to add a search box where we can search our data. Okay. If you go to JSON server documentation, it by default support the full text. That means any property can be searched. Okay, just we have to use Q as a query parameter. Okay, so first let's update our service. Go to superhero service. Okay, and here let's add one more parameter like search key. Okay, and now what I will do, if Such key contains some value. Okay. In that case, what I will do, if URL dot index of ampersand greater than -1. Here I am checking whether the URL contains ampersand or not. Means already it contains some other query parameters or not. Okay. If it contains other query parameters, in that case we can prepare the URL like the rate URL ampersand q equal to our search key value, right? Search key value. If ampersand, there is no ampersand, that means it is the first query parameter. In that case, I can add the URL like URL statics $URL. Okay, and directly I can call my query parameter. Okay, that is the change required in our service. Now go to our all superheroes component. Here it is expecting extra parameter, right? So here let's add one more input parameter like search key and pass it over here. Okay, and for now here give empty search key value wherever we are calling the get API method. Okay, now let's add search bar in our HTML. For that, go to Angular material and go to this input uh, section and go to the examples. Okay, I want to take this example. Instead of this cross mark, I am going to have the search icon. Okay, so for that, let me copy this. Okay, and go to all superheroes component.html. Okay, and add it over here. So I don't want this to be search. Okay, label to be search. Instead of model binding, I want to use reactive form like this form controller. Okay, so for that in TS file, let's create one more form controller like search control. Okay, so new form control and initial value empty. Okay, so let's bind this to our HTML file. Okay, so here let me remove this ng model and add form control. Sorry, should be form control. Form control. Okay, add it here. Now here you can see some ng if. For my case, I can remove this. And here it is not closed, change it to search. Okay. So I think we need to import mat icon components. Okay. So for that, go to Angular Material website and check for icons. Okay, and go to API and import this icon module. So go to our app module. Okay, and add this mat icon here and also add in the imports array. Now let's get back to our HTML file and not that. Okay, now that red line is gone. Now for this button, search button, we have to add a method for search method. Okay, So in the TS file, I will create a method like text search. Okay. So this method let's register with our click. Okay. So I have to invoke the get API method here as well. Okay. So get API method, but I need to have the sort column value and the search key values also. Instead of sending them empty, so while doing search, we may get some default or pre-selected sorting values, right? It's better to get the existing sorting values. So for that, what I will do, I am going to change the logic here little. So in the do sorting method, instead of calling the API here, what I will do, I will simply return this sort column and order column as an object. Okay. Now the sort column where we are calling here, right? So here it will receive sort data. Okay. Now here I will call the API call. Okay. This dot get API sort dot data dot sort column sort data dot order, and here we have to pass our this controller value, sorting controller we have, right? So this dot sorting control dot val such control dot value. Okay, okay, is expecting non-nullable value. Okay, we changed this logic, right? Same thing I can use here as well. So I will use this same line of code here also in our text search. And here we will have this dot sorting control dot value. Okay, okay. So that's it. Let's check the output. But we are getting search box, right? But they are there is no space between them. So what I will do, I will give some left and right margin. Okay, here I will directly apply on this. Okay, style. So margin, top and bottom, I don't want anything. I just want left and right. Let me give some 6 pixels. And let's check the output. Okay, little better. Now if I try to search like man, okay, all the names that contains man, not only names, any property that contains man will come. Okay, so if I search like MA, MA here is there, here also there in gender. So all the records mostly will come. Like that I can search. So captain. Okay. Next we are going to do pagination. Okay, let's add the pagination Angular material pagination component at the top here. Okay. First, let's check our JSON server supports pagination or not. So if you go to the documentation, here you can see it supports pagination. Okay. So for pagination, we have to pass two query parameters like underscore page and underscore limit. So page represents page number, current page number, and underscore limit represents size of the page. Means number of records we want to fetch for the request. Okay. By default, if you don't specify limit, it will send 10 records. To implement pagination, we need to know in JSON we will get this response, right? Along with this records response, we need to know total number of records present at the server. Okay. So total number of records will be given by JSON server, but it will come as a header value. If you inspect element and network call and refresh the API again, okay, and if you go to the call and in the response headers, okay, the response header you can found a custom header like X total count. So total number of records is 80. Okay. So total number of records will come as a response header. So it will get this response header only when we have a query parameter like underscore page. If you don't specify the uh, page underscore page, it won't return the X total count. Okay. Let me show you again. I am removing the query parameters. Okay. Refresh the page. And if I check the network call, you can observe there is no X total count header. That means it will come only when the uh, API call contains underscore page as a query parameter. Okay. So let's first modify our API call to read both API response and the header value. Okay. Okay. Here let's add two more input parameters like current page. Okay. That will be a number and page size. Okay. That is also a number. Okay. Now what I will do, I'm going to directly assign this query parameters itself here. Okay. So what are our query parameters? Like underscore page. Okay. So let's add it here. Underscore page equal to our current page number. Okay. Let's change it to statics to make it dynamic URL. Okay. So current page ampersand. What is another thing? Underscore limit. Okay. So underscore limit equal to page size. Okay. So here we are making by default current page and page size as default query parameters to our API. So here we need to change some logic. Okay. So that is like now by default we will have query parameters like, so in the sort column here it should contain ampersand. Okay. And here we no need to check these conditions. Okay. Directly take this line. Okay. And add it here. Okay. That is because previously we are checking whether query parameter is already exist or not. Those conditions no need here now, because we definitely have a query parameter like underscore page and underscore limit. And to read the X total count header, I need to change the response type as well here. Okay, let me change the response type here to HTTP response. Okay, so that comes from here. Okay, and HTTP response I can specify like any. Okay, and here just remove the, or here also change like HTTP response any. Okay, now let's go to our all superheroes TS component. Okay, first thing we have to change the return type, right? And here it is expecting some input parameters. So here I am going to declare two variables, page index. Okay, number. So index represent starts from 0. Okay, so initial value I will give like 0. And page size, default page size, let me give it to 5 records. And it should be a number 5 records. Now I can pass these two variables. Okay, so but page number should be starts from 1, right? So page index while passing to the API, make sure to plus 1. Okay, so this dot page index plus 1 will be our current page number. Okay, and the page size, right? So we solved this problem, method input error. Now we have to work on the response type because now I want to read both API response and the header value. So let me change this to response for convenience. Okay, and response dot body as, so this body is nothing but our JSON response. Okay, so I will convert it as JSON response. I will convert it as superheroes array. So superheroes array, and here now I can read the uh, x total count header value also. So to read the x total count, and we have to store it somewhere, right? So I'm going to create one more variable like total records. Okay, that will be a number and initial is 0. Okay, and here this dot total records equal to response dot headers dot get. And to this get method we have to pass the our header name. So what is our header name? So the text total count somewhere here. So copy this header name, okay, and give it here. Okay, if that exists, okay, by default it will return number. Okay, so string. So we will convert it as a number. Okay, if the response is not exist, our count is 0. So before testing our site, I forgot to mention one more thing. To read the response object, okay, here we have to specify an object like observe and in the string response. Okay, now if we go to our application, now see we are getting 5 records because initial size of the record we specified to 5, right? So here we specified 5, right? So we are getting just 5 records initially. Now we have to integrate these values like page index and page size to our pagination component. Okay, so for that, let's go to Angular material website and go to components and go to paginator. Okay, so let's copy this sample. Okay, so copy this sample. Okay, go to our all superheroes component.html and then next to our search text box add this paginator component. So before adding directly, let's give a div here because I cannot use mat form field on the paginator component, and also give this style here to this div. Okay, and it is error, that is because we haven't imported the namespace. So go to API section and copy the mat paginator module and get back to our app module. Okay, and add it over here and add it in the imports array object as well. Okay, now I think error must be resolved. Yes, it is resolved. Okay, now if I go to the website, okay, now here nicely we are getting the pagination. Okay, now let's do some configuration for it. Okay, Here length represents total number of records. Okay, let's assign that variable here. So total number of records. Okay, so assign. And page size represents our page size variable. Okay, so copy that page size variable and configure it. Okay, and these 5, 10, the range of page size. This makes helps to change our page size dynamically. Okay, like 2500 like that we can change. So here I will change it to 5, 10, and 15. Okay, because I have only 18 records, right? And there is one more option like we can configure like page index. Okay, current page index. So here I will assign. So this is the property of the paginator. Okay, and to that I am going to assign my page index variable. Okay, let's see now. Based on the total count, it is showing. Okay, so if I click, it is going next page, but content is not refreshing because we are not invoking the API call on clicking these values. Okay, so to do that, what I will do, I need to create a page event. Okay, so before creating the event, let's uh, write a method for that event. Okay, so method like handle page event. Okay, handle page event. Okay, so it's going to get the input of the page event. Okay, page event. Here I can change the index value. This dot page index value equal to e dot page index current page. So whenever what is the index of this click? Okay, so that will be comes from the page event. And next is dot page size. Okay, so e dot page size. If you change the page size, then this value will be assigned here. Okay, that comes from the page event. So this page event where it is coming means you can check the imports here. I think it is automatically imported page event that comes from the Angular material paginator. Okay, so let's get back to our method. And now I simply call the just API call, just like our text search. Okay, sorting column and controller column. Okay, I will copy here and add it here. Okay, now this page event must be registered with our uh, paginator page event. That is like events starts with brackets, right? So page, you can see here intelligence. Okay, and event. And here we need to pass the dollar dot int as the input. Okay, now if I go to our application, now it should trigger the API call because we registered the event, right, for any change on the paginator. So if I change to next 5 records I am seeing. If I click next 15 records. Okay. If I change here 15, see, I'm getting 15 records. Page size change also it is getting. If I change 10, I will get 10 records. This is also good, right? And let's make it to 5 records. And now I am in second page, right? 6 to 10 records, right? So if I search like, okay, captain, see, data is not coming because I am in the second page, but the content total records are only 2. That means first page only. Means these records need to be reset, right? So for that, what we can do in the search and in the text search method and to sorting method, we will reset the default values of the page size and the page index. Okay. So page size and page index I want to reset so that any other properties changes, right? So at that time it will automatically reset back the page numbers. Okay, page index 0, page size 5. Okay. And also add this logic, reset logic in the text search as well. Okay. Okay. Now let's go. And I am in second page. I will set some data. Okay. See, I am in second page, 6 to 10. If I click search, see, now I am able to see, and this page is also reset. Okay, that is because whenever another external filters applied, we are resetting our pagination. Then we get exact pagination. Okay, so that is how we can implement the pagination using our Angular paginator component. Okay, so that is the end of this video. We have implemented entire CRUD, sorting, search, and pagination. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support by subscribing to the channel, and also please don't forget to like and share the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.